The night Washington froze, a little girl stopped a billionaire with trembling hands and one desperate sentence. "Please, sir, my baby brother is freezing." And in that moment, everything he thought he knew about love broke open. Before we begin, pause for a second. Have you ever had a moment where doing the right thing cost you the life you were used to, but gave you the life you didn't know you needed? Hold that thought. You'll want to come back to it. Welcome back to Tales of the Fireplace Family. Here, we share stories that remind us of one truth. Love and loss touch every soul, no matter who we are. We never know when, how, or why, but love always finds us, and its stories deserve to be told. If you're new here, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the moments that change everything. And to our returning hearts, thank you. Your presence keeps this fire burning. Stay with us till the end. Share your thoughts, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Let us continue. Ethan Caldwell had learned how to win at everything except being happy. At 41, he was one of Washington, D.C.'s quiet success stories, the kind of billionaire whose name moved markets but rarely made headlines. Caldwell Innovations occupied 3 gleaming floors near K Street, advising governments, reshaping infrastructure, and printing money with surgical precision. And yet, on this December night, Ethan was alone. The board meeting had dragged on too long. His driver had called out sick. And instead of waiting for another car, Ethan did something he hadn't done in years. He walked. Snow fell hard over DuPont Circle, swirling under streetlights like broken glass. Christmas decorations glowed from shop windows, wreaths, garlands, couples laughing inside cafes. The city felt alive, and he felt completely outside of it. His townhouse on Massachusetts Avenue waited for him, warm, silent, spotless. That was his life now. After the divorce, after the miscarriage that no one talked about, after the quiet understanding that his ambition had come at a cost, Ethan learned to fill his days with work and his nights with emptiness. He adjusted his cashmere coat tighter around his frame and cut through a small park to save time. That decision would change everything. Naomi Carter was 9 years old, and she was running out of time. Her fingers were numb. Her toes burned inside sneakers that were never meant for winter. Snow soaked through the knees of her jeans as she shifted her weight beside a frozen bench, rocking gently back and forth. In her arms was her baby brother, Isaiah. He was wrapped in a thin hoodie and a blanket that had long ago stopped doing its job. His cries had gone from sharp to weak, and now, terrifyingly, quiet. Naomi pressed her cheek against his small head, whispering words she didn't fully understand, but hoped mattered anyway. "Stay with me, Izzy. Please just stay." Their mother had said she'd be back in 10 minutes. That had been hours ago. The sky had darkened. The park had emptied. And Naomi had remembered something her mother once said when she was sober and careful. If a baby gets too quiet in the cold, that's bad. Naomi didn't know strangers were dangerous tonight. She only knew her brother was slipping away. That's when she saw him. A tall man in a dark coat, walking fast, eyes tired, shoulders heavy with a life she couldn't imagine. Naomi swallowed her fear. Then she stepped into his path. The moment they almost don't meet. Ethan nearly walked past her. He was already reaching for his phone, already thinking about emails and deadlines, when he heard the voice. Small, cracked, desperate. "Please, sir." He stopped, turned, and saw a child standing in the snow, holding another child like her life depended on it. Her eyes met his, and with everything she had left, Naomi whispered the sentence that would undo him. "Please, my baby brother is freezing." Do you think Ethan will walk away, or step into a life he never planned for? The words hit Ethan Caldwell harder than any courtroom loss or billion-dollar risk ever had. "My baby brother is freezing. Not help me. Not can you call someone. But please," as if she already knew begging was her last option. Ethan crouched instinctively, the snow soaking through the knee of his tailored slacks without him noticing. The girl couldn't have been more than 9. Her arms trembled as she held the small bundle against her chest. He saw it then. The baby's lips weren't just pale, they were faintly blue. That stopped his breath. "How long have you been out here?" Ethan asked, keeping his voice steady though his pulse spiked. The girl hesitated, eyes darting toward the empty park paths. "I don't know. A long time. Mom said she'd be right back." A sentence every child believed, until the night they learned otherwise. Ethan gently placed 2 fingers against the baby's cheek. Ice cold. His instincts, buried for years beneath contracts and caution, came roaring back. The memory of a tiny heartbeat once pressed against his wife's belly. The future that never arrived. He didn't think. He moved. Without hesitation, Ethan shrugged off his coat, a thick, Italian wool coat worth more than most people's rent, and wrapped it around both children, folding it tight, sealing warmth around them. The girl gasped softly as the heat touched her skin. "Oh," she whispered, like she'd forgotten warmth existed. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Naomi," she said. "This is Isaiah." Isaiah whimpered faintly, his body limp with exhaustion. Ethan's chest tightened. "Naomi, I'm Ethan," he said. "We're going somewhere warm. Right now." Her eyes widened. Are you a bad stranger?" The question sliced him open. "No," he said quietly. "I promise you. And I don't make promises lightly." She studied his face the way only children do, searching not for logic, but truth. Then she nodded. Ethan stood, gathering Isaiah carefully, keeping Naomi tucked close under his coat as snow continued to fall harder, angrier. Each step toward his townhouse felt heavier than the last, not from the weight in his arms, but from the weight of choice. He could call emergency services. He could flag someone else down. He could hand responsibility back to the system. Instead, he walked faster, because something deep inside him knew. This moment wasn't an interruption. It was an invitation. The doorman nearly dropped his phone when Ethan entered the building with 2 children wrapped in his coat. "Mr. Caldwell, call 911. Tell them I have a hypothermic infant," Ethan said sharply. "Then bring every blanket you can find." Upstairs, his immaculate living room, once a shrine to solitude, became a battleground against the cold. Blankets, warm towels, low heat, gentle hands rubbing tiny fingers. Naomi hovered close, biting her lip, watching Isaiah like the world might steal him if she blinked. "He's too quiet," she whispered. "I know," Ethan said, forcing calm into his voice. "But he's not alone anymore." Sirens wailed outside. And for the first time in years, Ethan Caldwell prayed. Not for success, not for control, but for a child he'd met 10 minutes ago. If you were in Ethan's place, would you have done the same? Or would fear have made the decision for you? The emergency room smelled like antiseptic and scorched coffee. Ethan sat rigid in a plastic chair, his coat draped over Naomi's shoulders like a shield she refused to remove. She sat beside him, feet dangling, hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes never leaving the closed double doors where doctors had taken Isaiah. The adrenaline was wearing off. What replaced it was doubt. A police officer stood a few feet away, quietly speaking into a radio. A nurse approached with a clipboard, her expression kind but practiced, the look of someone who had seen too many nights like this. "You're not related to the children?" the nurse asked gently. "No," Ethan said. The word tasted strange. "I found them in the park." Naomi flinched. Ethan noticed. "I stayed," Naomi said quickly, her voice small but fierce. "I didn't leave him." "No one's saying you did," the nurse assured her. "You were very brave." "Brave." Naomi nodded, but her fingers tightened. Ethan leaned closer to her. "You did exactly what you were supposed to do." She didn't answer, because the truth was starting to sink in. If Isaiah survived, people would come. If he didn't, Ethan shut that thought down. A doctor finally emerged, pulling down his mask. "Isaiah is stable," he said. "Mild to moderate hypothermia. You got him here in time." Naomi's breath left her in a shaky rush. She pressed her forehead into Ethan's side without realizing she was doing it. Ethan stayed still. He didn't trust himself to move. The doctor continued. "Child Protective Services will be notified. Standard protocol." There it was. The system. Clipboards. Case numbers. Separation. Naomi's head snapped up. "Are they taking us away?" "No," the doctor said carefully. "They're going to make sure you're safe." Naomi's eyes filled. "Together?" The doctor hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Ethan felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest. Anger, sharp and protective. "I'll stay," Ethan said suddenly. "Until someone tells me I can't." The officer approached. "Sir, I'll need a statement." "Of course," Ethan replied. Then, quieter, to Naomi, "I'm not going anywhere." But even as he said it, resistance clawed at him, from the world and from himself. This wasn't his responsibility. He didn't know these children. He had a company, a life already mapped out. And yet, when a social worker arrived an hour later, clipboard in hand, voice apologetic. Ethan found himself standing in front of Naomi like a wall. "There aren't many emergency placements available tonight," the woman said, "especially ones that can take both children." Naomi's face drained of color. Ethan felt the weight of a decision pressing down on him. This was where most people stepped back. This was where logic took over. This was where he was supposed to say, "I've done enough." Instead, he heard himself say, "They can stay with me. Temporarily." The room went quiet. The social worker blinked. "Sir, that's not a small thing." "I know," Ethan said. And for the first time, he truly did. Ethan hadn't planned on bringing children home. Yet here he was, just after midnight, easing his car through the quiet streets of Washington, D.C., with a borrowed infant car seat in the back and a 9-year-old girl watching the world pass by through fogged glass. Isaiah slept fitfully, bundled in hospital blankets, a tiny monitor clipped to his sock blinking soft green. Naomi sat beside him, one hand resting protectively on the carrier, her other sleeve still swallowed by Ethan's coat. She hadn't let go of it once. The townhouse felt different the moment they entered. Lights came on too bright. Space felt too big. The silence, once comforting, now felt wrong. Ethan moved on instinct, guided by half-forgotten memories. He laid Isaiah gently on the couch, adjusted the heat, filled kettles, wrapped Naomi in a throw blanket that dwarfed her frame. "You can sit there," he said softly, pointing to the kitchen island. "Or anywhere." Naomi perched on the stool, legs tucked up, eyes scanning the unfamiliar room. "Is this your house?" she asked. "Yes. It's quiet." He almost laughed. "I know." Forced proximity did its work quickly. There was no place for distance when Isaiah whimpered and Naomi froze, panic flooding her face. Ethan handed her the bottle without thinking. "Here. He knows you." Her hands trembled, but Isaiah latched instantly. Relief flooded the room. Later, when a social worker arrived for a midnight inspection, Naomi pressed closer to Ethan's side. "Will I have to sleep somewhere else?" she whispered. "No," Ethan said firmly. "You're staying here tonight." The woman hesitated, then nodded. "Temporary placement approved. We'll review in the morning." When the door finally closed, the weight of what he'd done settled in. This wasn't a favor anymore. This was a beginning. Ethan set up the guest room for Naomi, laying out fresh pajamas he found online and had delivered within the hour. He turned his home office into a makeshift nursery, watching Isaiah breathe like it was the most important meeting of his life. Naomi stood in the doorway, uncertain. "You can sleep," Ethan said. "I'll be right here." She studied him, then asked quietly, "You won't disappear?" The question gutted him. "I'm not your mother," he said honestly. "But I don't leave kids alone in the cold." She nodded, absorbing that promise like oxygen. At 3 a.m., when the house finally stilled, Ethan sat on the couch, Isaiah asleep on his chest, Naomi curled under blankets nearby. His phone buzzed with missed calls and calendar alerts. For the first time in years, he didn't answer. What would you do if life forced strangers into your home and into your heart without warning? Morning light crept into the townhouse cautiously, as if unsure it was welcome. Ethan hadn't slept. He sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched, listening to the soft rhythm of Isaiah's breathing through the baby monitor. Every sound pulled his attention. Every silence made his chest tighten. Naomi patted in quietly, wrapped in an oversized sweater that swallowed her small frame. "Did he wake up?" she asked. "No," Ethan said. "He's doing good." She nodded, relief flickering across her face. Then she climbed onto the chair across from him, tracing the grain of the table with her finger. "My mom used to drink coffee like that," she said suddenly. "When she was happy." Ethan stayed quiet. Naomi had learned how adults stopped listening when you said too much. "She wasn't always bad," Naomi continued. "She used to sing when she cleaned. And she braided my hair real tight so it would last all week." Her voice cracked. "She said Christmas would be better this year." Ethan felt something shift. He'd assumed neglect, addiction, failure. But love, imperfect, broken, had been there too. "Where is she now?" Ethan asked gently. Naomi shrugged. "She goes away sometimes. She always comes back, until she doesn't." Later that afternoon, child services returned with updates. Their mother had been arrested 2 blocks from the park. Drug possession, endangerment, bail unlikely. The words hung heavy. Naomi listened from the hallway, unseen. When Ethan found her later, she sat on the floor beside Isaiah's crib, knees hugged tight. "She's not coming, is she?" Naomi whispered. Ethan knelt beside her. Not right now. How long is not right now? He hesitated. Long enough that you shouldn't wait. The truth landed hard. Naomi nodded slowly, like someone filing away pain for later. That night, Ethan found a photo tucked into Naomi's backpack, creased and worn. It showed Naomi as a toddler, her mother smiling, Isaiah not yet born. On the back, in looping handwriting, "We'll be okay. I promise." Ethan closed his eyes. He thought of his own past, the miscarriage no one spoke about, the wife who'd left when grief hollowed them both out, the way he'd buried himself and worked to avoid feeling useless. Different stories. Same wound. When Naomi woke screaming from a nightmare that night, crying about the cold, Ethan didn't hesitate. He sat on the floor beside her bed until her breathing slowed. "I don't want to be a problem," she whispered. "You're not," he said, his voice firm. "You're a kid who deserved better." For the first time, she cried without holding back. And for the first time, Ethan understood. This wasn't charity. This was shared damage finding shelter. 3 weeks passed quietly, and in that quiet, something extraordinary happened. Ethan's townhouse stopped feeling like a museum. It became a home. Mornings began with chaos instead of silence. Bottles warming on the counter. Naomi insisting Isaiah's socks didn't match his mood. Cartoons playing too loud. Laughter sneaking in where it didn't belong. Ethan learned quickly how to change diapers with one hand, how to soothe Isaiah by pacing the living room at 2 a.m., how to listen when Naomi talked, not to fix, but to hear. One afternoon, they built a blanket fort in the living room. Naomi dragged chairs into place while Ethan surrendered his good couch cushions without protest. "You're bad at this," she teased, watching him struggle. "I negotiate billion-dollar contracts," he said. "This is harder." She laughed, full and unguarded. That sound did something to him. At night, Naomi liked to sit at the kitchen table while Ethan worked, drawing pictures and sliding them across to him without a word. One showed 3 stick figures under a giant coat. Ethan swallowed. "Is that us?" he asked. Naomi shrugged, pretending not to care. "Just practicing." Isaiah thrived. His cheeks filled out. His cries grew strong. The fear of silence faded. And Ethan found himself happy. That realization scared him. One evening, as snow dusted the city again, Naomi asked, "Do you ever miss your other family?" Ethan paused. "Yes." "Do you miss them like you miss us?" The question lingered between them. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know this feels real." She nodded, absorbing that truth. For the first time since the park, Naomi slept through the night without nightmares. Ethan sat on the couch afterward, Isaiah asleep against his chest, and felt something close to peace. Which meant it was about to break. Here it comes. This is the lowest point. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Ethan was halfway through tying Isaiah's bib when his phone buzzed with a number he recognized immediately. Child Services. He answered with his shoulder, already bracing. "Mr. Caldwell." The caseworker said, voice neutral but firm. "We need to talk about placement." The word landed like a crack in glass. "They've located a foster family," she continued. "A couple in Maryland. Licensed. Experienced. Willing to take both children." Ethan's grip tightened. "When?" he asked. "By the end of the week." For days. For days to unlearn belonging. Naomi overheard everything. She stood frozen in the hallway, her face draining as the words filtered through her. That afternoon, the townhouse felt colder than it had on the night they arrived. Naomi withdrew. She didn't ask questions, didn't tease, didn't draw. When Ethan tried to reassure her, she stepped back. "You said I could stay," she said quietly. "I said you could stay for now," he replied, and instantly regretted it. Her eyes hardened. So this was just practice? The accusation cut deep. "That's not fair," Ethan said, frustration bleeding into his voice. "I never promised forever." She crossed her arms, shrinking in on herself. "You shouldn't have let us feel safe." The words echoed. That night, Naomi packed her small backpack. When Ethan found her by the door, Isaiah strapped to her chest in his carrier. She looked too grown for her age. "I won't cry when they take us," she said. "I already learned how." Ethan felt his control slipping. "This isn't my decision," he snapped. "I'm trying to do what's best." "For who?" she shot back. Silence swallowed them. Naomi turned away. And for the first time since the park, Ethan felt what she had felt. Abandoned. This is the reckoning. Quiet. Heavy. Human. The townhouse had never felt so empty. Isaiah slept in his crib, unaware of timelines or court orders. Naomi lay curled on her bed, fully dressed, backpack packed, eyes fixed on the wall like someone preparing for impact. Ethan stood alone in the kitchen long after midnight, staring at a legal pad covered in notes. Foster statutes, emergency petitions, background checks, psychological evaluations, risk, scrutiny, exposure. Every sensible voice in his life told him the same thing. This is too much. This isn't your responsibility. You can walk away and still be a good man. But another voice, quieter, older, truer, kept answering back. You already chose them the moment you didn't keep walking. He thought about the night in the park, Naomi's shaking hands, Isaiah's blue lips. He thought about the stick figure drawing under the giant coat. He thought about how Naomi checked the locks every night before bed, just in case the world came back to take them. Ethan picked up his phone, then put it down. Fear was loud. Fear of failing them. Fear of being exposed as unfit. Fear of loving and losing again. At 3:17 a.m., he finally made the call. I want to contest the placement, he told his attorney. I want temporary custody. Today. There was a pause. Ethan, this will change everything. I know, he said. That's the point. In the morning, Naomi didn't come to breakfast. Ethan found her sitting on the floor beside Isaiah's crib, whispering to him. You don't have to be brave today, Ethan said softly from the doorway. She didn't turn around. I'm already packed. He took a breath. I'm fighting, he said. That got her attention. She looked up slowly. Fighting who? The system. My fear. Anyone who thinks you're better off without someone choosing you. Her eyes searched his face, waiting for the catch. You don't have to, she said. I don't want to mess up your life. Ethan knelt beside her. Naomi, my life was already empty. You didn't mess it up. You filled it. Tears spilled before she could stop them. So you're not giving us away? She whispered. No, he said. I'm asking you to stay, if you'll have me. She launched into his arms with a force that knocked the breath from his chest. And this time, he held on. If love asked you to risk everything you'd built, would you be brave enough to say yes? The circle closes. The promise is kept. Winter softens. The courtroom was smaller than Ethan expected. No grand speeches. No dramatic music. Just wood-paneled walls, a judge with tired eyes, and a clock that ticked too loudly. Naomi sat beside Ethan, her feet not quite touching the floor. She wore a simple blue dress and clutched Isaiah's favorite stuffed bear, its ear permanently chewed. Isaiah gurgled softly in Mrs. Alvarez's arms, the court-appointed caregiver who had become part of their strange, fragile orbit. The judge flipped through the file. Mr. Caldwell, she said, peering over her glasses. You understand this is an unusual request. Yes, Your Honor. You're a single man. A CEO. No immediate family in the home. Yes. She paused. And yet every report says the children are thriving. Naomi held her breath. The judge looked down at her. Young lady, do you feel safe where you are? Naomi swallowed, then nodded once. Firmly. Yes, ma'am. Silence. Then, I'm granting temporary foster custody, the judge said. We'll review in 6 months. Naomi didn't cheer. She leaned into Ethan's side instead, like she finally trusted the ground beneath her. 6 months passed. Winter melted into spring. Spring into summer. The townhouse changed again. Crayon drawings climbed the refrigerator. Finger paint stained a wall Ethan never bothered to fix. Isaiah learned to crawl, then laugh, then clap every time Naomi entered the room like she was a miracle. Ethan learned patience. He learned that bedtime stories mattered more than emails. That success felt different when someone waited for you to come home. And Naomi learned how to be 9 again. She joined a science club, made friends, slept without checking locks. She stopped packing her backpack, just in case. The final hearing came on a snowy December afternoon, almost exactly 1 year after the night in the park. The children's mother had made her choice. She stood in the visitation room across from Ethan, hands trembling, but eyes clear. I love them, she said. That's why I'm letting them go. Ethan nodded. I'll tell them the truth. All of it. Promise me they'll know I tried. I promise. The adoption was finalized 2 weeks before Christmas. Naomi stood tall beside Ethan as the judge smiled. Isaiah banged his hands on the table, delighted by the noise. Congratulations, the judge said. You're officially a family. That night, snow fell gently over Washington, D.C. Ethan wrapped Naomi and Isaiah in his coat as they stepped outside, three figures under one familiar warmth. Naomi looked up at him. "You didn't walk away," she said. Ethan smiled softly. "Neither did you. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive the way we expect. It arrives cold, shaking, and asking for help." What would you have done that night in the snow? If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. And if you believe in unexpected love and second chances, stay with us for more stories like this. Because sometimes, family begins with a stranger who stops walking. What would you rate this story from 0 to 10? And where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. Let's build a global community rooted in kindness, love, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who would enjoy it too. Your support brings us closer to our 1K subscriber milestone and fuels our mission to create more emotional stories centered on resilience, healing, and Black excellence. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Your presence truly matters.